All right, y'all. It's looking through the glass, as always. And we're your hosts, Sela and Jeselle, because I don't think I always say that. I think it's obvious who we are, but. And today we have Julie. And Julie, we actually reached out to her, and I read a little bit up on her story, and she has overcome so much, and that's one of the biggest things that we like to empower on here is overcoming. And please, Julie, please tell us more about you. And I know that you have an organization as well.
I do. Thank you for having me. I'm glad that you reached out, and I'm excited to see you guys growing and exploding everywhere. So my name is Julie Barth. uh, I'm an author. Mostly, I'm a mother of six, and I have a special needs daughter who she was diagnosed. Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. She was not diagnosed. We feel as if she has something called primordial dwarfism. She's 24, and her life has been. There's no reason she's still here. She's 24 years old, 24 pounds. She went through like 48 surgeries out the gate. And then after that, when she turned 13, completely unrelated to what she had when she was born, she came down with a rare form of connective tissue cancer. So that's my special needs, Julie. I'm also a widow. I was married to my grammar school sweetheart. He was my first kiss, and we were best friends. And right after Tate started getting better, who's my special needs daughter, he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And yeah, so we had 4 children at the time. The oldest was 10. My youngest was 6 months. And then Tatum was sandwiched in between there. And right as we were coming off the initial, her birth, several surgeries, traveling across the United States, trying to figure out what was wrong with her, tons of medical malpractice that was unbelievable. We were rejoining life, and he just wasn't feeling well. So he went into the hospital, and within 4 or 5 hours, we were told that he had pancreatic cancer. So not only did he have an inoperable tumor, but it had spread to his liver. So at that point, they said he has 2 weeks to live.
When it spreads to the liver, that's when it gets bad.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it was inoperable at the time, and this was back in 2007. So he was 34 years old. I was all right. I hate when I listen to myself sometime on podcasts because I'm a little fast and loose with like dates and ages. So I'm gonna try to be true. But
You know,
Especially if it's like all this time and
yeah,
you've
when
been
you
through
go
so
through
much.
so many different events so close together, the dates really just kind of don't matter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but sometimes I'll listen to myself. I'm like, wow. He was around 34, 35. And again, we had 4 small children. So they told us, take him home, he has 2 weeks to live, if you can imagine. Take him home, let him say goodbye to his kids. And I guess coming off of everything that I had been through with Tatum, because she wasn't supposed to be born, she wasn't supposed to walk. They told me she'd never talk. I developed this attitude toward the medical community as okay, I'm going to listen, but I'm choosing not to believe. So I did that.
We understand
We
that.
completely understand. We have our own things that happened in our lives to go. We understand.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I liken it to like if aliens come down, then you find like I think we're all going to find out if that comes to that like the government's of no help because they can't help you. And that's kind of where I got to in the medical community is like you just go to your doctor, you go to the hospital, and then you realize, wait a second, they can't help me. Then where do you go? And I think that's kind of what I've gotten to. They do their best, but in the end, I guess it's like parenting. They're guessing as much as we are, and they have expertise, but the human spirit, the human body, the human everything is something that you can't categorize, and you can't pinpoint.
Yeah. You learn that when you go through situations like what you went through.
You do, and the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes a good way, sometimes. But he did end up living 16 months. We got him into a trial, and he was doing amazing. It was one of those like he was our star patient. And for anyone who's ever been in chemo, usually they give you a chair and then like it's a little cubicle and they put someone in front of you. Well, he was doing so well in this trial and it was almost like we were rock stars. We showed up and we got a whole room to ourselves and they treated us like royalty. But he took a couple weeks off to join my son at a baseball tournament, who was about 11 at the time. And, I wasn't going to argue with him. He was doing well. And, who knows if that's why. But when he came back, it was like the wheels fell off the cart. And within 2 weeks of his return, he called me from chemo and said they're kicking me out. So as quickly as we were escorted into the nice room, we were shown the door. And from there, it was just everything kind of just went downhill.
Wow.
I can only imagine.
Gosh. I can't imagine. Wow.
And you had 4 children.
And you had 4 young children at the same time.
I did. And I think that was the hardest thing is like, as a mom. I'm sorry?
I said, I think you're still a rock star.
Oh, well, thanks. I think that you kind of put yourself into, you break into 2 people. You have to be the mom that's like, this isn't fair to put them through this, so I have to be on when I'm with you. And you don't have time to fall apart. If you do, it's like a quick fall apart in the bathroom and somebody's calling you, you're up and doing it. So, people always ask me like, how did you do it? And I think you don't have a choice. Yeah. So, when people say you're so strong, I think any caregiver says, like, you have no idea, like, what I'd like to be doing now, Mm-hmm. And those feelings, I think, stick with you because you do feel resentment. You do feel, very negative and you don't want to say it. I remember lying to him about going to chemo and feeling bad that I was lying to him. But, you just put all those things into, like, a little package and you don't deal with it. And if you don't deal with it, then it comes back to haunt.
Yeah, that's just, wow, Julie, that right there just...
Yeah, that's kind of a jaw dropper there. Nice entrance.
I know. I'm always like, well, because they have such a story that it's like, where do I like skip to it? Do I do bullet points? So every time I'm on somewhere, I'm like, okay, because I could continue to talk over and over and over, just even telling the story. And I think, that's my first book is the story of Colin and Tatum and their resilience. But I will say, it took me 15 years past when I wrote the book. My husband died, I got remarried, and I didn't have the strength to read it. But when I did, I got to the end and I thought, the crazy stuff didn't even start yet. And if you can imagine that everything I just told you was a preamble to like what really went bad. So that's kind of how my life is.
So that after all of that,
this isn't even the crazy.
That's not even the crazy. No, that's wow. Something that was nature and something I couldn't do anything about. So, I mean, a different kind of crazy. But so after he passed away, I lived in a small town. I say small, but it's part of Chicago, so it's as small as it can be. And it was the same place that we grew up together, and so everybody knew us. And we had, 4 kids, and we were deeply ingrained. And Colin, that was his name, was, he was a football coach, he was a baseball coach, and so everyone had fundraisers for us. And, although it probably, it's, you would know this when you're pregnant, like people see you and they're like, gosh, it's going so fast. And you're like, for you, because it's not going fast for me. Like, that's kind of how I felt with Colin's illness, like it was 16 months. But for everyone else, it was probably just a blip because they saw him and he was well, and then they saw him and he wasn't. And so I had those 16 months. And when he passed, it was like everyone else just started to grieve. And I was at a place where I had lost him every day for 16 months. And I was, I couldn't sit in it anymore. And I almost was like, I need to move out of this. I can't be Julie Barth anymore. I need to start a new life. I need to put that behind me. I can't mourn it. I can't grieve it. I just can't deal with it. So I packed it away and I got remarried. And it was to a very emotionally abusive man, which led to another decade of just unimaginable. I don't know if you've seen that. What is it called? Dirty John kind of thing, where coming out of the first situation where I was strong and I was, this person that was handling everything and taking care of everything, and then becoming a shell, where I had no control over my, anything really, where I was just trying to get out of bed, get to the end of the day and not lose anything. It's really the dichotomy of two different lives, but I'm the same person. So I had 2 more children with him. We moved away from home. I left everyone in my past. And I kind of put myself into a position where I was stuck, financially, emotionally.
That's
so,
life.
Yeah.
That's where the users always like you, is in that stuck, frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it's hard not to say like, well, you did it yourself. And I think that's why we gaslight ourselves, because we think, well, you chose it and you're the one acting crazy, because I was. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did a lot of crazy things in an attempt to hold on to something that was so incredibly toxic. But it is orchestrated and it's manipulative, and you can't see it until you're on the other side of it. So you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, they didn't mean it. Oh, and you just become numb to all of the things that they do to you. So they have to keep ramping it up, and you have to keep trying to adjust. And it's a terrible cycle.
Yeah,
it really is. And a lot of people, there's still women who are stuck in it and still don't recognize it.
Yeah. Well, physical abuse is something you can look in the mirror, you can see a bruise, you can see, and that's proof to you. Like, that signals your brain, like, I have been hurt by somebody else.
Yes.
Emotional abuse isn't like that, because they convince you you're the problem. And I remember thinking, if I just kept my mouth shut, if I didn't start all of this, because I would tell him, come home. If he came home late, I'd be like, get out. And if he left, I'd be like, come back. So it's all these like, just reaction. I reacted to everything for an entire decade. I didn't make a conscious decision. I just bounced. Okay. Can you still hear me?
we always have that.
I can hear you now.
You can hear us? Okay. My one microphone went dead. I had to switch microphones.
No problem.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
That's something that we actually, when it comes to the mental abuse, because she was in a narcissistic, physical, and emotionally abusive relationship for 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
And I always say 15. For some reason, I feel like it was longer than that.
I get it. Yeah.
And he was around my entire life, and he was emotionally abusive to me. He couldn't put his hands on me, but
because then there would be that proof that you were talking about.
That proof.
Yep.
He very much took advantage of the emotional abuse, and people don't recognize how they can also be very abusive to the children, and not.
Yes. My ex-husband, in fact, that's why I finally got out. People always say, why did you get out? And I wish I could say, because I knew I deserved better. But I had my son, my second youngest, came to me one day, and he said, like, because you try and leave and then you come back, and so we had separated for quite a and like
There's
we had
so
separated
much mentally going on. People don't understand the amount of mental, excuse my language, fuckery that goes on in the mind when you're in this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't see it. Like, you become so tunnel visioned on just saving it. Like, no matter no matter how bad it gets.
One day without a freaking fight, or without the house getting destroyed, or without being cussed out, or without getting hit, or whatever.
Yep.
You just let me get through this one day, and it's literally you're just trying to get through that day without any blow-ups.
You are. And how about if you just don't sabotage my life for once? I just remember being like, I am handling my shit just fine. But the minute I would be, he would like throw rocks into it and make sure that I couldn't and trip me up, like just messed up stuff where, and your brain almost goes like, you're being paranoid. There's no way that he's doing that on purpose, like I used to think, oh, he's just got ADHD, didn't understand that he didn't get this done. But that's not the case. It's all very systematic. Everything's very intentional, but they play it off like, oh, it was a joke. It was a joke. Or you're being too sensitive. Or, gosh, can't you control your emotions? Look at you. Look at the way you're behaving. And you do. You kind of go.
Really gets to me when they sit there and they get mad at you, or they turn it around on you. They say something and then you have a reaction like, kind of, what is that about? And you question, and then it's, oh, now you're being irrational. How dare you? That you're not right. That's mean to me for saying that you look at me like that.
Yeah. And how dare you say that I don't love you? Like, that is so mean. Like, because I would be like, do you even love me? And I can't believe that you would say that. Like, and then I would feel bad because I was like, oh, wow, he really does, that he gets that upset that I'm asking. But it's all, it is all orchestrated. And, I've gone back and forth because, I don't know if they do it like grand scheme, like, mwah. Like, I never really know. Or if they just find what works and stick with it. I don't know if it's.
I think it's more they find what works and just stick with it, because it's going to be different with each person that they're with on what works and what kind of manipulation works best. And I don't think it's all thought out when they do it either. At least for my incident, I don't think my ex, he was an intelligent man, but I don't think he was that intelligent. I'm not going to give him that much. You know what I mean?
Well, mine actually was. I mean, he was, like he stole my engagement ring and had a new one made for like $100. Had me, just the lengths that I was like, you had that much energy, but you couldn't cut the lawn. I just never understood it. It's like, you can't take the garbage out. But
you went that far, and you couldn't do this.
Yeah.
Even if you were going to do it, couldn't you have cut the lawn while you were doing it? Like, do something. Yeah.
You get to that point. You do it when you're handling everything, and they're just leaving all the responsibilities piled onto you while they're going off doing whatever, and you're like, you couldn't have just okay, you screwed me over, fine, so be it. But you could have done this while you're doing it.
Right.
Save 5 minutes.
And I don't know if this was part of your experience too, but I never got a straight answer about anything. I would be like, what time are you coming home? And he'd be like, well, when do you think I'm coming home? I'm like, I don't know. Are you going to be home for dinner? I don't know. Do you think that I should come home for dinner? And it just.
He just wouldn't answer the phone, and it would go straight to voicemail, and I would have to try to search down where he was. Typically, it was at the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time, I was at the bar, probably picking up other women.
100. Or gambling. Gambling was a big one with mine.
Definitely. Drinking away rent money, the whole 9 yards.
Especially if it was payday. He wasn't coming home.
Yeah. I know. Well, and, I found mine on Bumble, and, it was like, how dare you be looking at my phone? I was just looking. I wouldn't ever do anything with it, and whatever it is, they just downplay it, and then it gets violent and it gets scary. And so you just like backtrack, and you're like, okay, all right. You're right. I get it. Just please don't do it again, and then it's, oh, you can't control me. Well, no, I never could control you. I didn't want to control you. I wanted to have a relationship with you. And I think it's, people that really, I was coming out of the trauma of losing Colin. So, they find that weak link in you that will really make you, put you into something. And so he knew that, like, the thought of losing another relationship, losing a husband, losing anyone, just would make me do whatever anyone wanted me to do, because I was like, I can't lose this. I can't lose it, So that would be the thing. He would threaten to leave, and then I would be like, oh, I'll do anything. Just don't go. But as I was saying before, my son came to me and he said, Mom, I've completely, my childhood has been ruined. I'm afraid of him. I sleep with, the door locked. When I hear him come home, I won't come out. He's like, he's threatened to kill you. He's threatened to kill me. And in my presence, I actually, heard it. And he was just like, I just don't understand. And at that point, thank God, I think that was the first moment where I had, I like to say that I'm a mom and that I'm a good mom. And in that moment, I had to recognize that being a good mom meant protecting them, even if I didn't have enough, self-awareness to protect myself. Because I always thought I was safe. I never thought he would really hurt me, which I'm sure he would had I stayed in it. He did the throwing furniture and ruining everything I have and kicking indoors and pretending to choke me. And I think, that's why I'm so passionate about emotional abuse, because emotional is just a matter of time before it turns physical.
Yeah.
And it only takes once. Gabby Petito is a perfect example. Like, it just takes them once to lose control. And he used to say to me, like, when we were arguing, he'd say, "This is getting dangerous." And I was like, whatever. Because I never really understood what was going on in his head. But in his head, it was getting dangerous. And I'm sure he was having thoughts about taking me out. And I don't think that I really understood what was really going on in his head and how dangerous it really was going to be if it had continued.
Mine was very physically abusive from the very beginning. And he would bite my face. I remember my ears, one fight, my ears hurt for months because he had me pinned down on the bed, and he's just brutally beating into my face and screaming as loud as he could right here in my ear. And I like the little bones in there, or the hairs in there, would, anytime they would vibrate for a while, it would hurt so bad. I remember the final straw was when he strangled me. And that was when I had literally, I by the grace of God, was I able to break through. I tore all these. Went into his face. I was able to get this hand free, and I went into his face like this to get him to get off of me. And for, I'd say, probably about 6 months, if you pushed back on these fingers, it would hurt because I had to put so much force into it,
Yeah.
And that was, it took him strangling me for me to call the cops. Like, the neighbors, when he was beating me mercifully when laying on the bed and screaming in my ear, it was the downstairs neighbors that called the cops. And that was the beginning of the relationship. And I gaslighted myself. I allowed him to gaslight me because we were out partying earlier, and we had both been drinking, and maybe we just weren't thinking, the alcohol was the reason, not him. And I gaslighted myself right back into that relationship. And she was 4 years old at the time, and it was very similar with the not being able to let go, because the relationship I had in my marriage prior to that, I was the toxic one. I was the very toxic one. So I was kind of looking at it as this was my, second
You
chance.
deserved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also that I deserved it because of all the horrible things I did to my first husband. And the reason why I left, the reason why we split up was my fault. And I had noticed that afterwards, and I was like, I didn't appreciate this person when I was with them, but I give them all the appreciation now, and I didn't want to do that again. And so I literally put everything I had into it, almost my life and almost my child's.
Yeah. I can appreciate, and I think that when you think you deserve it, because I had a lot of survivor's guilt, I think you just think, well, and you do, because you numb yourself to it by drinking or, whatever it is. And then when you drink, you're like, oh, it was I must have done something when I was drinking to bring that. If I just don't drink, then everything will be fine, But then you go right back to, I can't live this life. And so it's a cycle of, you cannot drink enough to make that part go away. And so the more you drink, the more you accept their drinking. And I used to remember thinking like, well, I'm not going to say anything about, and he'd wake up in the morning and drink, but he was nicer sometimes when he drank. And it was I could relate to him. So I guess I was an enabler, because when he was sober, he was so horrible to be around that there was a happy medium. It was like, if he was just tipsy enough, he would come
But if you
home and
had
like
that
wanna have a
one,
party with everyone and be real nice. If he had had too much, he was sloppy and mean. If he didn't have enough, and then the hangover the next day, I mean, I would wake up in the morning with him just screaming at me like, I hate that, and I was like, morning. Like, yeah. So and it's all in degrees, and you just think, well, I can manage this. It always felt manageable, but nothing was manageable at
no,
all.
it's all an illusion.
It
That
really is.
manageability is completely illusion. You're just fooling yourself, and it takes a long time to realize it for some people.
Yeah.
It
And I
is.
think if you just have one good day, you consider yourself like, I can do this. Like, look, everything's fine.
And
It
they
just
do
was a
behave for
fluke.
a while. They do
Hmm.
behave. They stop and they behave for a while. And you're like, okay, everything's great. And then the bomb drops.
Yeah.
Always. And
Yeah.
until you realize that they're gonna continue going back to how they were, that you cannot change them, that is not your duty to change them, then you don't quite comprehend that things aren't gonna change. Every time there's new hope. I know that's how it was for me. I was
Yeah.
constantly new hope, thinking of new ways to change myself, new ways of going about things, new ways of doing things, trying to implement different things into our daily lives, and it was just all
Fall
false
apart.
hope.
Well, and like I said, it's not only like you can't stay in your own lane. I just always
Hmm.
thought, if I just stay in my own lane, but he would pull in front of my lane, or he'd throw a
Yeah.
brick in my lane, or or if I didn't fight with him, like if he went out and then he would send me a message, at 10 o'clock, because he knew I was tired. He knew he was late, and he would just send a message like, "What? You're not going to talk to me?" And I was purposely not talking to him because I knew it would start a fight. And then, of course, I would be like, no, where are you? And then it was on, and it was like he wanted that. So he would wait until the ideal time so that he knew where I would be emotionally. He knew the reaction he could get, and he knew then he could use that reaction to take it to the next level. And I would, soon be apologizing and chasing and saying, fine, do whatever you want. You don't have to come home. Let me buy you a truck. Like, whatever it was. I just always was like, can't we just get along? I just never understood, why can't we just get along? And I didn't have that with other people in my life, but he created that with other people in my life too, because he would stir the pot and he would say like, well, they don't like you. And I'd be like, why don't they like me? Well, because you're mean. And I'm like, really? I don't think I'm mean. But then I would be apologizing to these people and they wouldn't know what's going on. He was telling them I'm crazy. So they would approach it like, okay, and it's like, no man in prison is ever guilty. Like, they would just look at me like, I'd be like, I'm not crazy. They'd be like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know. We
Yeah,
know
we
you're
know.
not crazy. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
but
you. Don't overreact. Just calm down. Don't
mm-hmm,
overreact. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Always you're the overreactor, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was. I'm not going to, yeah. There's only so long you can stay silent, because just as someone's emotionally abusing you, the only thing that you have at your disposal are words. And your words don't do anything but fall straight, and you just think, if you get louder and you just communicate it better, or if you present it in a different way, or
Mhm.
clearly he's not
They're just not
understanding me.
understanding. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I was like, he's just not quite understanding what I mean. I always
Right.
give it some kind of excuse, some kind of excuse. So your son came to you. Sorry, we don't mean to get off track here. Your son came to
No,
you
it's okay.
and told you, "Hey, I'm not, I can't, I feel like I'm in danger, this and that." And you're going, "Okay." And what were your next steps?
Well, at that point, I was very fortunate. We had two small children together. So I had the four. We had two more. My daughter had cancer. We moved away. And so our life was very chaotic. And he would always take jobs out of town, for twofold. Then he could do whatever he wanted. I had to raise the kids by myself. And I couldn't see what he was making, so that he could be socking it away somewhere, or gambling it, or buying, a night of whatever. So he didn't really live with us for probably about 3 years. And COVID hit, and he was an independent contractor. And he didn't come home for like 6 months. And I think that at that point is when I had that conversation with my son. And I was starting to see, like, as much as I was so afraid to do things on my own, that not only was I doing it on my own the whole time, but I was doing it with his sabotage. So I had, we had separated before, and he presented me with papers, which, I knew, now I know, they weren't really papers that he intended to sign. They were papers to prove to me how serious he was if I didn't change. And it was my house. He never contributed a dime to it. I paid for everything because I had, inheritance money. And so he said, "Oh, I don't want anything. I'm just gonna leave. I just want to see my girls," which he never saw anyway. But so I took him at his word because I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I hired a lawyer who wasn't going to do anything but serve him. And so there was no pressure on him to do anything. So I kept calling him and saying, like, "Are you going to sign those? Do you want something more?" Because I was even willing to negotiate to pay him off to just go away at this point. I'd rather live in a trailer park than do any of this. And I just wanted it to be amicable. Kept saying, yeah, I'm gonna sign. And in the state of South Carolina, where we live, you need a year of separation where neither parties can see anyone. If you do, it's considered adultery. Well, he was always off doing, cheating on me. And so, of course, he said, "Well, I'm moving on and I want you to move on and I'll sign these papers, blah, blah, blah." Well, sure enough, he wasn't moving on. His parents were very wealthy, and his parents, along with him, hired a private investigator to follow me as I'm raising all 6 of our children. And he, on Thanksgiving, made me come home from my home in Chicago. I was visiting with the kids. Made me come home because he wanted to see the kids. And I literally hadn't pulled up more than 10 minutes before there was a server in my yard serving me with papers saying that I committed adultery, that I was a drug addict, that I was an alcoholic, that I was endangering our children, that, just tearing me apart and saying all of these things that were not true, that I was alienating the kids from him, that he couldn't see the kids, which, by the way, I never said he couldn't. But that led to, all of the probably $25,000 in fighting him to then turn around and pay him exactly what I had offered at the beginning, in which he went away. But it was a little bit about money, but it was more about destroying my character. I mean, that is what he always wanted to do, to make me look bad, to make me look, poor. He was always abused. I was a very abusive wife, according to him. And that's all he really wanted. So I guess he got what he wanted. And I ended up paying him off to go away. He had 1 weekend a month, which he never not followed through with. And after a year of doing all of that, more court cases, he came and threatened my girls again by showing up at their school unannounced. And, the administration, this is how involved he was. There's a little private school that my children go to, and there's probably 12 kids per class. So, like, the graduating class has 12 seniors. So everybody knows everybody. And they didn't even know who he was. That's how involved he had been as a parent. And I had 5 kids go through that school, and they had never seen him. But he showed up there, and finally I struck first. It was the first time that I thought, I'm not going to be a sitting duck anymore. I'm not going to take it laying down. I don't care how much it costs me. I'm not leaving my kids vulnerable to this because, my lawyer was like, "He's never going to exercise. You don't need sole custody. They're never going to give it to you. He hasn't done enough bad things." And I just got to a place where I was like, I don't believe that, and I can't leave that door open because I went under that assumption for a decade. Like, oh, he's not going to. And I finally woke up one day when I was fighting for the little girls and said, no, he is. He 100%, if I leave that door open, will not only come through it, but will drive right through it. So I do have sole custody, and it's over, and we've not seen him. And he's still telling a tale about how I took his kids and alienated them, but I don't care. I know what the truth is. My family knows what the truth is. The kids have testified to it. never said a bad word. And I've also said to the girls, if you ever do want to initiate that relationship with him, as long as it's safe, I will do everything in my power, to put that relation back together. My 4 children from, my first marriage, they lost their dad. I would never take away a healthy relationship. But at that point, it was not healthy. I don't know if he ever can be, but I would never close the door on it like he said I would. So.
Well, yeah, no matter how they try to twist us or twist you, you are still the one that stood there and was manipulated so many times. You were the one that thought, oh, that they wouldn't go there, they wouldn't go there. You were always the one with the benefit of doubt, not him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was never even here. That was the craziness of all of it. And the big reason why I do what I do, I remember this shame, and I don't know if you felt it, but the shame of coming out and because if you expose somebody else for who they are in an intimate relationship, such as in marriage, you have to expose yourself because you are not completely innocent in all of it. No, and when I say innocent, I mean you continued to stay, right? Now, I'm only saying that because that was my mindset. And so it always will be. It always will be, because that is why I do what I do, because so many people stay in these relationships because they're so afraid of being the bad guy, or looking bad, or people are going to know what you put up with, or people are going to know what went on, and it's shame and it's guilt and I should have protected my kids. I shouldn't have let him take half my house. I shouldn't have let him cheat on me. So many things that you sit back and you think, oh my gosh, I should have never. But the problem is that you can't stay stuck in something because you're afraid of what's been in the past. You can't change the past. You can only change the future. And so that's why I do what I do, because I'm out here saying, yeah, I behaved ridiculously. I did things I'm not proud of. But you do what you do with what you're presented. And had I known what was really going on, would I have stayed? I don't know. I should hope I wouldn't. But when you're in it, you can't see until you get on the other side of it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking?
It took the cops telling me. It literally took the cops, because I had to do the questionnaire after I called the cops when he strangled me. And when I say that was the only time I called the cops on him. That was the other time the cops were already there, and the cop actually pulled him off of me. But that was the only time I had ever called the cops. And for a person like me, I've always been very sassy. I've always been very strong, independent-minded, all of those things. So to think that somebody like me would put up with something like that, people were like, even my ex was like, I didn't think he would ever put up with anything like that, when my first husband. And I was like, you're right, I wouldn't have. I don't know how I did. I don't know why I did. I can't understand it. I can't break it down. But the reason why was because I didn't understand the dynamics of a narcissistic relationship. I didn't have that knowledge, and that was, I didn't get that knowledge until 10 years after the relationship had ended. But what has saved me was the cop that told me, this isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when he's going to kill you.
Yeah. And I believe he would have. I believe he would have.
Oh, no. I guarantee he would have.
Oh, we all know.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he's not any healthier today. Mentally, he's not any healthier today, as far as I know.
I'm going to say, in all honesty, we don't even know where he's at.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I get wind from people that'll say like, oh, I heard so-and-so, and I don't even care. I do wish him well. I do wish, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's drugged. Yeah. Like, I hope he cleans his act up. I don't want him to be miserable. And I'm not out here pleading my case. I'm not out here trying to make him the bad guy. I'm out here because I think it's important for people to know what they're really dealing with.
Yes, agreed. The education, like I said, because I didn't have that education, I didn't understand the dynamics I didn't understand trauma bonding. I didn't understand the flying monkeys. I didn't understand all of the other terminology that goes along with it. I didn't understand any of that. I was just stuck in it. And I
Yeah.
couldn't recognize it for what it was. I was just so spiraled out of control, and you're just so busy trying to hide as much as you can, even though people are seeing it. With me,
Oh,
people were
everybody.
seeing
Yeah.
it. People were absolutely seeing it, but I was still trying to hide it as much as I could, trying to protect my kids from it as much as I could, but without leaving them completely blind to how he was, because we have a daughter together. And with when she came about, we were actually separated when I found out that I was pregnant with him. I had gone back to school. I was putting myself back through school to become a veterinarian. I was doing all of this stuff, and because I was done. I had lost my house, lost everything that we owned. We were locked out by the sheriff, you know, and going through that and coming home and my daughter not being able to have a roof over her head. I was like, no. So I had moved in with my mom. We had separated, and I was going back to school. I was doing really good. Then I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And went right back, you know. And
Yeah.
of course, there was the thoughts of how do I handle this, and that. My faith doesn't allow me to have abortions. I just can't do that. I'm not that person. Everybody each their own. But
Yeah.
me personally, that didn't fit in with who I am. And so I kept her, and I almost died during that pregnancy. I was so sick because I had preeclampsia. I lost my job. I was working for my mom. My mom owns a cleaning company at the time, and I was working for her for daily cash just to be able to feed us. We were eating hot dogs every day.
Yeah.
That was, we were living with his parents in a room, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But then you go out and you try to rebuild, and then every time we try to do that, I was stuck in living in weeklies. I was stuck living in out of hotel rooms. He always kept me in that financial where it was I had no
Yeah.
possible way of supporting us. It literally took the point of not having electricity for a month, not having water for a month. I had to clean out our toilets, by hand. That's what it took for me to get away from him. It took
Now,
us
how?
going
What were
through
his
that.
parents? What were his parents like?
His mother, so his biological mother, he didn't know, but the mother who raised him, she actually was one that helped save me too.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
and she called me up and she said, the only reason why she was able to save me was because she was going through the same thing with his father and had
Oh,
gone
okay.
through it for so many years.
Which, yes,
And
makes
she had
sense.
called me up. This was right after I had dropped off his stuff at their house. And she goes, number one, that's my son. He will always be my son, and I will always be on his side, no matter what. I will always support him and always be on his side. She goes, with that being said, please don't take him back. He's not going to do anything to but hurt you. You guys are not good together. You guys are toxic together. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. Please
Yeah.
don't take him back. Those were her words to me. And her and I are still close. She's still my family. She's will forever be my mother-in-law. I don't care. His father was always amazing to me. Their relationship was not, that was between the two of them. His father was always amazing to me. Always, they always said, you're our daughter-in-law and you will always be our daughter-in-law. We've
Well,
kept a
that's
close
good. Yeah.
relationship, but he did pick up a lot of his things from his father,
Yeah.
what
A
how
lot
his
of those
father was
traits, I think, are. Yeah.
got passed down. And that's why his mom said, it's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. And she did stay in that marriage until he passed away, you know, and
Yeah.
she stayed there. He passed away last year. So she's now, you know, but she stayed in that marriage throughout the entire thing. I don't know how she did it, but she did it.
Yeah. Probably more why. How about you, Giselle? How was he to you versus your sister?
Oh,
um, I actually spoke a little bit on this. I am very one of those people who became very private and didn't really speak out about a lot of these things. Um, Especially the relationship that my ex stepdad and I had. I very much couldn't stand the man. He very much would always, before my sister was born, it was, he wanted to make sure he got the attention. So he would always manipulate into saying that I did something wrong, and then I would get in trouble. And so I couldn't go outside, I couldn't do something, and he would always make sure that I was in trouble for something that I did not do. Or he would over exaggerate on how it was done, and then I would, so it was very much, he started creating that animosity. I was like, I can't stand him. I got to the point where if they got into a fight, I would literally scream to leave the house with her because I didn't want to be stuck in the house with him. Because all he would do was just talk really horribly about my mother. And then when my sister was born, my sister was his world. He was like very much going that, like, how he treated my sister compared to me.
Two different worlds.
It was two different worlds, and I was very much, I built up the animosity towards my sister at 10 years old. I was like, I don't like her. I couldn't stand her, and it really mentally messed me up at first. And then I don't know when it clicked. I was within that year, I realized it wasn't her fault. It was his. And so I grew closer to my sister and was like, that's my little sister. I'm going to protect her, even if it's from her own father. And because he still would lash out, even with her in the room. He didn't care who was around. He didn't care. We would be in the middle of the store. He didn't care.
Oh, yeah. It didn't matter. I'd be pumping gas, and he would flip out on me in the middle. And I was always left in such a state of shock. Every time he did it, it would just shock me into this, what is this? Why? Because he would literally.
Because he could.
You fucking hoe, you fucking whore, you fucking bitch, da 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 da, and he would just totally lose his shit on me. And people would be looking, and I have never had a single person stand up for me. All those years, I never had a single person stand up for me, never had a single person look at and go, hey, never. That's how violent he would get.
That just gave me the chills. Yeah, and people like that make sure that it's so aggressive that no one will touch it.
Yeah, and that's how he would turn so.
And because I think as an outsider, you're like, well, he's not. I think that
he's not hitting her yet.
Yeah, well, they don't even think yet. They think, well, the next person will take care of it because I don't want to get. This could get dangerous if I get involved.
Bystander syndrome is what they call it, a bystander syndrome.
Well, that woman that just got killed on the subway from her boyfriend, the same day Charlie Kirk died, she made complaints about him over and over again. Nobody stepped in while he killed her in front of everyone. So, yeah I mean, this whole I don't want to get involved thing, I understand. But I will tell you that if I ever saw something like that, and to whoever's out there listening, you don't have to step in, but it is your responsibility to call somebody and make a claim about it. Yeah, you can take a picture of the license plate. You can, you don't have to get directly involved, but it is everyone's responsibility to see this through, just to say like, oh, they must be having a bad day. That's not a bad day, and even if they are having a bad day, well, good. Then whoever gets called out should be shamed for it. And even if he was just being nasty, well, maybe he'll think twice before being nasty again. But when something is liable to get out of control, and that's why they walked away. And that's why I feel this deep responsibility to be, I think that's why we're here, is because people didn't step up. And it's not as if nobody didn't say to me like, it's probably not a bad not a great situation, but at the same time, a lot of them just abandoned me because they were like, I don't want to be in that situation, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. She's not going to listen to me. And without even like really trying, they would say things like you said, like your mother-in-law said, like, you guys are just bad for one another. That message to me sounded like, if you were nicer, then he would be nicer and you two could get along. Like, I never saw it. Almost sounded to me like I was not trying hard enough to make it work, because I can make it work with anyone in my head. And so when people would say, oh, you're just mismatched or you're toxic to one another, I thought, well, I don't want to be toxic to him, and that would make me be nicer. So anyone out there that's saying, if you really believe that someone, if you want somebody in your life to walk away from a relationship, don't approach it as, well, it's, both of you. Because it's not. You know who you're with,
She was very, she pretty much begged me to not go back. Well, I mean, literally, like, please, please, please. And what got me was no mother is going to call, it's a very rare incidence where a mother's going to see her son in for the manner of how he's treating his wife,
Yeah.
and not how she sees her son. That there's always that barrier, and his mom didn't have that barrier. And it really truly did hit home, especially when right after that he had come to pick up. We were already separated. We were separated for like 6 months at this point. And I was finally starting to get back on my feet, had my car going, had electricity, had water, had a roof over our head. I was still fighting it. I was, didn't have a regular job because we lived in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is not the best place for jobs. I refused to go to a casino because a casino was worse than a narcissistic relationship. It was like putting
I
yourself
can
in another.
imagine. I've never been, and I never want to be.
It definitely, it's a very difficult place to survive. It is
Yeah.
by far the very difficult to survive on the streets and in from being on the streets because it's such a transient town.
Yeah.
And jobs, I mean, I spent 2 years every single day looking for a job and didn't get one. I was like going over and over and over and just refilling out applications and even going, okay, well, I'm not qualified for this, but what are they going to do? Not call me? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I was so desperate. So
But and
desperate.
that just keeps you even more stuck.
And I
And
was so
so
desperate that I was thinking about doing illegal things with me,
yeah.
because when you're at that point, you're like, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
And I couldn't take him back.
Yeah.
And it was literally 1 week after his prior uh, assault on me had been wiped. It was he was done with it, the anger management classes and all that. It was 1 week after it had closed. That case had closed. He uh we were separated. He called me from his job and said, hey, I'm going to come pick up our daughter, for the weekend. I said, okay, cool. He said, I'm going to stop, I'm going to cash my check, and then I'm going to be there. All right, cool. And he didn't show up. It had been a couple hours, and I knew, all right, he's drinking. Next thing I know, and what was really crazy was a whole bunch of cops showed up I lived in a really bad neighborhood, but a whole bunch of cops had showed up on the corner to pick up somebody else and had somebody else in handcuffs when he had showed up. So they hadn't showed up for him, but they were there, and he had shown up, and I said, "You're not." And he had this walk. I could hear him,
Yeah. I know. Yep.
walking past the house before he
The
even
minute
got there
that door
because he's already
opens, you
got a
know what you're going to
scenario.
deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, he's already got a scenario going on in his head, and he's already assumed that I'm going to be a bitch, this and that. And I told him, I said, I'm not letting you take our daughter. I'm not comfortable with that, you know. And if you want to show up tomorrow or when you're sober, then because he was riding the bus, and I said, I would be more than happy to help you, or you can take her then, but I'm not comfortable with you taking our daughter being so intoxicated that you can barely walk. What happens if you guys get separated on the bus? You're not all there. I'm not losing my daughter because I feel bad enough for you for being drunk. It's not happening. And that, like you were saying, that was when I was taking my power back.
Yeah.
And he had punched me multiple times in the front yard with this cop standing right there on the corner. And I made sure that I didn't swing back. I made sure I didn't yell. I made sure I didn't react. I was really had control over myself. And I kept telling them, and I was saying it loud enough for the cops to hear me, but they were kind of busy. And I was like, don't hit me. You need to stop hitting me. And I made sure I stayed out in the front yard. And our daughter had come out, and he at that point started to go up the stairs because we had stairs going to the front door of the house. And I had jumped in front of him, and I had told my daughter, you need to get back in the house. She was like 4 years old at the time. and he bent me over backwards, and I had blocked the stairs, and I was holding on with everything I have, and my spine is actually crooked up here because he had me bent over so backwards and my neck was so tweaked off. And the next thing I knew, I mean, I was about ready to pass out, and next thing I knew, all of a sudden all the weight came off, was lifted off of me, and it was a cop from on the corner pulled him off of me. And but it was 1 week after he had that other case had closed out, so guess what, he got away with it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Well, that's the judicial system for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he literally he didn't spend in hardly any time in jail. He spent 3 weeks in jail, no big deal. Went back and did all of the anger management program for the third time, because the first two times he obviously didn't comprehend it, right? So let's send him again.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, that whole, like, I remember my lawyer saying to me, like, it's not enough. Well, you can't do it because it's not enough. That's not enough. And like, and just thinking, well, when it's enough, it's going to be too much. And we're not going to be able to go back from that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the courts are looking for. I don't know how dangerous it has to be. In my book, if you show up, because my ex did the same thing. He picked them up. They were babies. Got him in a car with a 6-pack on the way to a flea market, went to the flea market, came home, went to lunch. My neighbor's daughter waited on them, 10 beers at lunch, went back to his parents. It wouldn't come home. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, he had them according to, the plan. He had them for the weekend. Even if I had called the cops, they would say, unless there's some violence going on, there's nothing we can do. And that's, to me, if somebody holds power over you like that, then yeah, there should be something you can do, because your one job as a mom is to protect your kid. And when the courts take that ability away from you, and the whole argument, like, well, once he does it, then then we'll do something. Well, again, once he does it, it's going to be too far. And it's going to be too far. And why are we putting kids in that position where, I remember recording things, and it's almost like you don't stop things before they happen because you have to let them happen. So, like, he was treating my daughter horribly. He was playing mind games with her, and I was listening to it on the phone, and I couldn't step in and protect her because I was like, the only way I can protect her is by letting her get hurt. And that was the sickest part of all of it, is that I had to sit back and almost hope that he showed his true colors and I could get it on film. And that, the twist from wanting to protect your kids to wanting him to show his worst side, just once though, because, not anymore, just so that the courts will finally say, this isn't a good idea. But why does it take that? There was nothing in, my son is saying he's threatened to kill me. He's threatened to kill my mom. My daughter's saying I'm unsafe. I have another son who he was giving drugs to at the age of 18. Those things are all documented, and I don't know how anyone can come in and say, no big deal. I mean, he's a dad. Let's give him his rights. Not even supervised, Like, well, boys will be boys.
At the very least supervised.
Yeah, boys will be boys. That I feel like that's the court's answer. Well, he hasn't been violent yet. Okay, well, let's wait till that happens.
Threats, And
yeah, or like, they used to tell me, well, like, make sure when they drive away that, if you see him drinking, to call the cops. But you're supposed to put your kid in a car and let him drive away and hope that the cop, with your kids. Yeah.
And your kid I know.
Yeah. And there's nothing you can do. And if you don't, then it's a knock against you and you're losing more of your ability to gain custody.
In the long run, it's always a knock against you because you're standing up. And I understand that things, you can't blame somebody for something that they haven't done. I understand.
But you can blame them for the things that they have done.
But
like it wasn't like he had never done anything. Yeah.
When the kids are coming forward and saying, I'm not comfortable, I have to sleep with my door locked, and the other one's going, no, they're being abusive. The other one, 18 or not, that's still your kid. You shouldn't be giving them drugs,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Well, he wasn't 18 at the time. It was, and he would give him drugs and alcohol to keep him quiet and to keep him on his side, because he would have to, if
party dad.
my oldest son were to defend me, then he could get ratted out. So it's just all an orchestration, and keep everyone, the reason when you were telling, Jeselle, when you were telling me the story about your sister and you, he does that because then he wants to keep everybody else at odds. He wants to make you mad at your mom. He wants to make you mad at your sister. And then, and then you look like the problem. So then he goes to your mom and he's like, she's really misbehaving. You need to like put a clamp on her. And then that that's not the case, but you're like, okay, well, you know what, Jeselle, you probably shouldn't have said that. You probably, you need to ease up a little bit because, you're creating all of this. And nobody's looking at the only problem in this entire scenario is one person that is causing everything for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's looking at, okay, what do all of these things have in common here? And it's that one person.
Yeah. But, what's the common denominator in all of this chaos? Yeah.
Yeah. We very much, and that's over the years, and this is why we started something like this, is because over the years, there was a lot of hatred towards my mom for what was going on. There was a lot of hatred of
resentment. Yeah.
In that situation, like
can't blame her.
We were stuck with an abusive man for years. I watched things that I shouldn't have not seen. I heard things I should have not heard. And, there was things that were said to me. I was called a whore and a slut because I hung out with guys at the age of 13. And, he threatened to kill me when she was off trying to just get money to help pay for the bills.
Yeah, I had to work 4 jobs while he worked his
me too.
And
well,
I had to
mine drank all the time, and yeah. As I'm raising kids, and
this relationship, I was in active addiction through most of the relationship, and that of course that played a huge factor in a lot of the things too. I'm not saying I'm innocent in it.
No, but I do say, but as I said before, there's only so much you can take before you start numbing yourself. And then when you numb yourself, you stop losing the ability to really see the situation. Yeah. And it just never, you can't get numb enough, No. So your addictions, your whatever it is that you do to escape become larger and larger. And then they pour those on you. I remember if we would get into an argument drunk, he would tell everyone I was an alcoholic, and he would be like, you need to stop drinking, but he'd wake up at 8 a.m. in the morning and start drinking. And it was like, well, this is what I do, but look at you, you're a drunk. And I was like, how is that a thing? I'm raising our children. I had a drink at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And did I drink too much? Yes, I'm sure I did. But that was after a long day of taking care of everything. But it just didn't, but then you take a hard look in the mirror and you're like, I was drunk again last night. Like, this has got to stop because look what I'm doing. Look what I'm causing, So, well, I'm glad that you two are. I'm sorry.
They really like to play the mind games.
Oh, yeah. And they're very, very good at it. So it works for them. And I always said, like, I wish he would have used those powers for good instead of evil.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Because they're not all there's damage in there, they're hurt too. There's damage.
Well, and I think that's how they get you too, is that underneath there, or at least you believe, I don't know if there was or not, but you feel like they're wounded and they just didn't get the love they needed. And if you could just love them enough. Because you do see that good side, like 5% of the time.
They show it quite often. They have to, because that's the only way you're going to stick around is if you see that.
And I don't know if yours is like this, but mine would be nice to everyone but me. Like if there was a person on the street, he would be giving them $10, or he would be like, helping them up, or an old lady across the street as he's like, sabotaging and probably tripping me on the way out. But the fact that he could be so nice to everybody else.
Yeah, somebody I knew wasn't able to provide Christmas for her kids. And he got a bonus check for Christmas, Christmas bonus. And he went out and bought Christmas, all the toys for her kids. There's those things in there, because if they're not, then we wouldn't have stayed.
But he didn't do it for your kid. And that was always the thing. Like, I would buy all the Christmas. Yeah, I would buy all the Christmas gifts and they'd all come from Santa. And then the night before Christmas, he would go out shopping for everybody and bring everybody gifts. And they're young, so they think there is a Santa. They don't know it's me. But he would bring home gifts for everybody from him, not from us, from him. So Santa would give them gifts and he would give them gifts. And it would give the appearance that I was doing nothing because, I wasn't Santa. But yeah, it's that I want to look like this charming, wonderful person. And they will take every opportunity to be kind to anybody but you. But that makes you feel like, what's wrong with me? That they're being nice to everybody else but me.
Yeah. I literally spent, after my youngest daughter was born, I spent, because during my pregnancy, he was amazing. And I had fell back in love with him. We all know what they do. And after I had her, boom, total turn. Total different chick, right back to the way things were.
And they can turn it on and turn it off within a day.
And it was literally right before she was born, because I had preeclampsia and I was so sick. I mean, my kidneys had completely shut down. My liver was failing. I was going through my body was going through a systematic shutdown. I was dying. I was literally dying. And it was on my birthday, and he was working on the car, pretending to be working on the car. He wasn't really doing.
So yours was mechanic too. That's interesting.
He was pretending to be doing something, useful, but it wasn't. It was just for the show. I'm being responsible. And I went out there, and I had been in bed throwing up for like 6-7 days at this point. And I had went to the hospital, and they had given me some fluids and then sent me back home. I had every sign of preeclampsia. My ketones were literally off the charts. So my kidneys were already in failure, and they didn't recognize it, and they just sent me home. And then on my birthday, this was like 5 or 6 days later, I was sick again. And I went out and I said, hey, can you put the car back together? I think I need to go to the hospital because I'm just not doing right. I'm getting those funky burps again. And the pain's starting to come back. And I got yelled at. And then,
I did too. You're making a big deal out of it. Look at you trying. Yeah. You're being a drama queen. Stop being a drama. You want me to drop everything for you?
Yeah, I just started doing this. I'm trying to do this for you.
It's all got to be about you, Julie.
For you. Yeah. This is your car, not mine.
Right.
We only had one car. It was mine because I was the only one that bought anything.
Yeah.
But then I went back inside, and he put the car back together, and he drives me to the hospital, and I get yelled at again in the parking lot of the hospital. Of course, he can't drive me to the door. I've got to walk through from the street and through the entire hospital parking lot.
Well, that's because he's escorting the old lady across the street.
Yeah, exactly. It's because he's seen the old lady. Never mind the woman that's my pregnant wife. My kid and my wife are dying,
Right.
And then so I was like, okay, forget it. Just take me back home, because he didn't want to sit in there. And this is all on my birthday. And then I ended up having my mom... I think I had him drop me back off again later on, because I was like, I'm not getting any better. The pain's getting worse. And I had already, all I could do was just rock back and forth because the pain was so much. I couldn't even cry. It hurt so bad. And, but of course, my kidneys were gone. They were done. And I was in the hospital by myself. I remember having to call him up and tell him, hey, they're going to induce me. They're saying that the only way that, I'm going to die and the baby's going to die if I don't. Did he show up to the hospital? No. It took him 8 hours to show up to the hospital, knowing that his wife and his daughter are dying, and he was too busy getting drunk. And then he shows up to the hospital drunk. Come on, let's go. Let's get this baby out. Oh man, I remember looking at him. I was like, I swear, if you caught one more time.
Yeah. Well, I think that they all follow very similar patterns, unfortunately. So.
Yeah.
They all end up being very similar from what especially from being on the outside, because I've never been in a relationship like that. I very much.
Well, hopefully you never will. Yeah.
I don't think I ever will. I'm very happily married, and.
They've been together for a long time.
That's wonderful.
We've been together for 10 years. So
that's amazing.
I don't let him go that one. But
yes, don't.
Yeah, no, I'm not. But from seeing from everybody else, they're all very much the same. You guys all face the same situations, the same, how the running back, the reasons why you keep running back or why you stay, and how they act, and how the manipulation, and how they make you feel bad. It very much all ends up being very much the same for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think anybody out there that's listening, you know, I didn't listen, instead of listening to podcasts like this, I used to, listen to Can You Love a Narcissist? How can, trying to fix it rather than trying to acknowledge it. So again, I give you both a whole lot of credit for putting this out there, because I think the only way to get people out of these relationships, to make courts understand what's going on, to really, take the veil off of abuse like this, is for real people to come out. And, as you're talking, I'm talking, and I'm like, oh, well, I have a story for you. And you're like, oh, I have a story for you. But it's the same story, and it's,
in an essence, it's the same patterns that, and it shows. And our goal, and I'm quite sure your goal is too, is to spread as much awareness out there, so that you don't have to go and read about a narcissist necessarily in order to understand part of it, because that's what I had to do.
yeah,
That's when I started healing. Was 10 years. It took me 10 years of suffering and trying to understand all of that. And I was in another marriage. I'm in another
yeah,
marriage, and but it still had so much effect on me that it affected
it
my
lasts.
marriage
Yeah.
that I was in. And it was we're healthy people, and there's a lot of that took into place too, and we almost ended up losing each other through all of the things that I had gone through, through the addiction and all of that. But
Yeah.
you have a book, correct?
I do have a book. Yes.
Okay.
I have three books. The first one is called Notes from a Blackberry. That one's out already. And again, that's about Tatum and Colin. And then my second book is going to be, I said this fall, but someone reminded me the other day, we're in October, Julie. And I was like, oh, the second one's called From Blackberries to Thorns, which it's done. I'm just still in editing. And then I have a third one coming out called From Thorns to Blossoms, which is kind of unpacking, but the second book is where I go into meeting my ex-husband and getting in and getting out of that relationship. So, and I opened up a charity to help women who are in a situation, although the domestic abuse situation is something I'm very passionate about and helping people. I'm also very passionate about the many me's, the special needs mom who couldn't get an RSV vaccine, or, the caregiving mom. So our organization is called the Colin James Barth Outreach, which is named after my first husband. And basically we're fashioning ourselves to kind of be like a concierge service where, there's so many charities out there and we don't want to replicate anything. But what we do is you come to us, and I think sometimes the hardest part is just having a plan. This is what you have to do A, B, and C, because until you have a plan, you are not going to leave. So we do provide, I'm the only one manning it right now. We have some board directors, and we're working on like the logistics of building databases and stuff. But if you go to my website, I man it. It's called, again, cjboutreach.org. And then my daughter, who is a special needs daughter, has art, and she does her art. So the proceeds from her art go to fund the charity. But yeah, so, hopefully I'll be on again when you guys make it big, and we can talk about it again.
I would love to have you on again. That would be amazing. Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
We would love to have you on again, and when each book comes out.
Yeah, how about we set up time when your book gets released, a little bit after your book gets released, and you can come back on, and
I would love to. Yeah. No, and again, hearing someone else's story, in the back of your head, you think, yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, that happened to me. It's just nice to know you're not the only person that got bamboozled. You're not the only person. And when you meet other people and you see that really all they wanted to be was a good mom and take care of their kids, and just put up with the wrong person for all the right reasons in the wrong way, I think building that community of all of us, you know, it doesn't have to get physical. It doesn't even have to get to the point where, you know, he's stealing your engagement or gambling. If he's just putting you in a position where it's impossible and your life is being diminished, life is too short to stay in any relationship where you feel like you're giving 90% and they're giving 10.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I always put this out there every episode to let people know that if they need help, if they want to reach out and speak their stories, or if they want to stay anonymous and still share their story, anything of that sort, they just want to reach out. There's the email. It's 12lookingthrough34theglass@gmail.com. We very much want to make this a place for anybody to have a voice for any situation.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, and congratulations. I mean, the next time I see you, you are going to be 1 instead of 2, I think. Jeselle.
Yeah.
So I'm wishing you... You're going to be 2 people instead of 1. Well, I'm wishing you the very best and the best delivery, and I'm looking forward to meeting your little one when she, here. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?
It's a girl.
Well, great. See, and you're changing the future for her, so good on you.
Exactly.
And that's that I think that was one of the things that really pushed me into this also was I wanted to be able to change what I had not done, or what I had done. I wanted to change that as much as I possibly could while I'm still here.
It almost feels like a shot at redemption, I think.
Yeah.
Again, how we talked about, you can't do anything about the past, but you can do so many things about the future.
Yeah.
So thank you for all you do.
Thank you for all you do,
Yes.
All right. Well,
thank you for looking in through the glass, you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, we recover out loud, so you don't have to suffer in silence. Your story can help. Till next time, we'll see you.